Earlier today, Minister Simon Harris was taking leaders' questions and was asked about the horror that has been rained down on the people of Gaza. And he said what's taking place is a war on children, a war waged by Israel against Palestinian children. And that's a very good description of what's happening. Over 4,000 children killed. Bombs raining down on hospitals. A children's hospital surrounded by Israeli tanks, Israeli soldiers going in, telling the staff, you have to leave, you have no choice, otherwise we're going to shoot you. Babies in incubators, having the incubators turned off because the hospital runs out of fuel deliberately because of Israel's starvation of Gaza of food, fuel, water, and the babies then effectively left to die. A mass grave of hundreds of people at a hospital, including children. Yes, it's a war on children. It's also a war on adults in Gaza. But I agree with Minister Harris, it's a war on children. But what's he going to do about it? He's just described it as it is. It's a war on children. But Simon Harris, tomorrow night, having said to the world this is a war on children, is going to come into the Dáil and is going to vote to say Ireland will not make a referral to the International Criminal Court for a war on children that is taking place. He's going to come into the Dáil and say, I'm not going to vote to expel the Israeli ambassador, despite the fact that Israel, I've acknowledged, is conducting a war on children. He's going to vote against imposing any economic sanctions on Israel, despite the fact that they're conducting a war on children. It sums up the utter hypocrisy of the Irish government on this issue, where because you're under pressure of mass popular support for the Palestinians, the government likes to give fine words, but you refuse to take any action because you don't want to rock the boat in terms of your relationship with US imperialism. The government's argument about the International Criminal Court is an utterly empty, cynical argument. The argument is we don't need to make a referral to the International Criminal Court of Israel, like we did with Russia. We don't need to do that because sure, there's already an investigation underway. But the government knows, they absolutely know, that this is an investigation that has been underway since 2021, that deals with all war crimes going back to 2014, and has not produced a single tangible result to date. The government knows that we need a new referral focused on the current crisis, focused on the genocide and ethnic cleansing being carried out by Israel today. If the government needs a model for referral, we can provide it to them. There's a very extensive referral which I and hundreds of representatives around the world have signed, which details the various crimes against humanity, the war crimes and the crime of genocide being committed by Israel. This referral specifically refers Netanyahu, Yoav Gallant and other Israeli cabinet ministers to the ICC for investigation, citing specific instances of these crimes and of statements by Israeli ministers and military officers inciting genocide and war crimes. It's open for people to sign publicly. But the people can see the contrast between the underfunding and foot-dragging on an ICC investigation into the situation in Gaza, the contrast between that and the speedy investigation of Russia for war crimes in Ukraine, including the issuing of an arrest warrant for Putin for war crimes in March this year. That's despite the fact that the situation in Ukraine was only referred to the ICC in March 2022, long after the investigation into Palestine had supposedly already started. You look at the contrast between the speed for 38 states, including Ireland, referring the situation in Ukraine to the ICC within a month of the war breaking out, with the reluctance and the refusal for the Irish government to do it. The Irish government says openly the ICC should investigate, but refuses to actually make it happen. When Ireland referred the situation in Ukraine to the ICC last year, Minister Simon Coveney said the referral will enable the prosecutor to, quote, immediately begin this investigation. Because under ICC rules, if you have a referral from member states, it means the prosecutor does not have to get the approval of ICC judges before opening an investigation. Why does the government not apply the same logic to the genocide and ethnic cleansing of the people of Gaza? Is it because Israel is a US ally and Russia is not? Secondly, I want to quickly address the excuse for not expelling the ambassador. The excuse for not expelling the ambassador is, well, sure, we need to get our citizens home. But it's over a month now. It's over a month now, and the government is not telling the truth to people. The truth is very, very clear for anyone who looks at the numbers. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of citizens of other countries have now been allowed out of Gaza by Israel, and the Irish citizens in Gaza are being held hostage by the Israeli state. That is right now when we have these supposedly great diplomatic relations. Citizens of Ireland, citizens of Brazil are being punished for the very mild words of criticism by the Irish government and the vote for a ceasefire at the UN. Final point I want to make is that this is a moment when the contrast between the attitudes of ordinary people in the West and the attitudes of their leaders is so great. Massive gulf between them. Millions of people are mobilising internationally for peace, for justice for Palestine, for liberation for the Palestinian people, while most of their rulers support the oppression, support the genocide, or in Ireland's case, with words criticise but refuse to take any action. This is a moment when mass mobilisation can make a difference. You look at the forced sacking of Suella Braverman, linked to the pressure from below. You look at Macron being forced to call for a ceasefire, linked to the pressure from below. We have to absolutely put as much pressure on this government as is possible, continue the thousands of emails coming in to say there must be a referral to the International Criminal Court, the Israeli ambassador must be expelled, there should be thousands of people outside the Dáil tomorrow, Wednesday, 6 p.m.